So, before we get into this, I'm just going to say a disclaimer that this is my own personal opinion on where the morality of these characters are. Y'all can debate in the comments, but be mature about it, alright? No little girls spitting insults at each other for no reason other than petty differences. It ain't worth it, trust me. Since most of the characters actually ended up in the gray area from how complex most characters are, I split the gray area into two parts, darker and lighter gray area. Rules are as follows. I'm basing these rankings off of things only shown in the episodes and common assumptions from basic observations. Another rule is that I'm not going to include any characters not actually attached to the main plot or current timeline. So, Azra's Lover and Embermane, as well as the Band of No-Mains and Barkmane's Pride, save for Moonstrike, don't really count. I know there was character development outside of the series, but I'm just going by the series. Without further ado, let's dive in, shall we? Evil. Starting with our gold medal of evil, we have Suns. To be fair, not much is known about Suns. However, in the My Pride universe, it's Suns, essentially causing global warming, according to Kansu, because she can't control her anger or let any of the past go. She also killed Azra's lover and blinded her, and while she did make up for it somewhat by giving Azra new eyes, she never made an effort to make up for the death of her lover, and since she killed him with a lightning bolt, there's also an observation to be made about the lightning strike that nearly killed Feather in episode 5. Oh yeah, did I almost forget to say that she mostly killed off an entire civilization of lions in the Emerald Valley with her raging flames? Yeah, and all of that before even mentioning the damage her last chosen did. Speak of the devil, our silver medal of evil goes to Light, leader of the Sun Kingdom and the self-proclaimed decider of truth. It's unclear if he was an abusive spouse throughout his whole life, as there was no indication that he was a raging psychopath until after Kyoga abandoned him. That being said, that's the only thing saving him from the gold medal. After figuring out that Kyoga was no longer his, he created a lie and started a war to get her back, resulting in a lot of death and destruction. He killed Karabi, the most innocent of all parties, and then lied about what really happened to create Pride Law, making life terrible for all lions following his reign. Moving on, I give the bronze medal of evil to Fire, a snotty little shit as a cub, and a power leech as an adult. Fire was the only one close to actually killing nothing in his life. Quickmane was close as well, but while Fire physically nearly killed her from sheer entitlement, Quickmane nearly executed her out of fear of his cubs dying under her watch, and rightfully so. Fire killed another mane and cheated at it too, attempted to kill Feather and Nothing when they got in the way of what he wanted. He didn't need a pride. He very well could have joined Nothing and Feather on the stretch and they might have made a good team. However, last time he traveled with a companion, he killed him, and maybe even ate him, so maybe not. He loved Nothing and looked after her, but later just tried to use this fact as manipulation to get Nothing to help him kill Feather. Fucked up, dude. On to our next bad influence, we have Power Strike. Aside from sticking up for Nothing in episode 1, this bitch was a terrible mother. Not only did she openly abuse Nothing, but Farleap also revealed later on that she was neglectful towards her and Silent Stalk as well, never really paying that much attention to them. Sure, Power Strike is a product of Pride Law, but so is every other lion and lioness, and nobody treated Nothing quite as cruelly as her own mother did, even giving her her cruel name. She did save a little face at the very end of episode 7 with standing up for Hover and leaving with her to find Nothing, but that doesn't make up for all the terrible things she did. And if she's to be redeemed, she'll have to do a lot more than that. Next up to bat, we have the less cool version of Quickmane, Proudmane. Proudmane took advantage of Feather's big mouth and took the pride, and was willing to kill Nothing on the spot. He also tried to hurt Hover, and regards his lionesses with much less respect than manes of the past. However, the reason why he's this high up on the list is because he decided not to kill Nothing, and instead decided to keep her secret that she was alive. He stays loyal to this lie even at the cost of most of his lionesses. He also gives nothing advice to pass along to Fire, showing that he does care for someone other than himself, but that doesn't count for much. The Dark Gray area. Starting out our Dark Gray area, we have Kyoga, Punisher of Light since the days of the Emerald Valley. Considering that there was no proof of homophobia in the Emerald Valley before Pride Law, and Light showing to be a caring, courting partner, she had no reason not to tell him the truth to his face, other than simple cowardice and selfishness. Was she wrong to love Karabi and pursue her own life instead of the one chosen for her? Fuck no. She had every right to live a life that made her happy, but she literally did the line equivalent of cheating on your fiancé and then sending him a text hours before their wedding saying that you've run off with your true lover, but oh, don't worry, I'm fine. That was a little too selfish, and I believe the war and Light's wrath could have been avoided had she just been honest with him from the start, and not simply neglected her duties as a leader as well as what was supposed to be her best friend. I believe both Kyoga and Light contributed equally to the fall of the kingdoms. However, Kyoga ranks higher because of the sheer amount of damage Light did to both the Emerald Valley civilization as well as all generations to come, though not ranked higher by much. Speaking of death and, well, Kyoga, our next up is the goddess of death, Azura. Now, let's be frank here. Azura was essentially abused by her sister for who knows how long, until she decided to do the same thing Kyoga did, run away and hide. She did it twice. Once to live amongst the mortals and love someone, and again to hide from both her sisters, and in the process neglected her duties as the collector of souls, leading them to wander, lost on Earth. She won't even talk to Kansu either, and initiated the cycle of reincarnation that just makes everything all the worse and more pointless. Combined with suns making the Earth less and less livable each year, this moon goddess, knowingly or unknowingly, is basically sentencing all life to suffer in an endless loop until there's nothing left. Not even offering refuge in death to all the souls who depended on her to help put them to rest. That being said, she had every right not to deal with Sun's seemingly unhinged constant abuse, and deserves to have her own safe space away from all the toxicity of the world, as does everybody, just not at the cost of all life and dead souls currently on Earth. Just think of poor Sharp-Tongue and Spark, wandering the world alone after all they had endured in life. Next up, we have the controversial character that is Quickmane. Like Proudmane and Fire, he is a product of Pride Law, but in comparison to the other two just mentioned, he's actually more justified in his treatment of Nothing. Yes, he was still abusive by all accounts, as was the rest of the Pride, but he shows empathy for Power Strike, Water Hunter and the Cubs, and even Hover, if not for a brief moment. The day he nearly killed Nothing, he was justified in wanting to do so. Nothing had endangered his children, and possibly the rest of the Pride, in going to visit the No-Manes. In fact, she did, and Quickmane and his children died for it. Despite his flaws and entitlement, he was still a step up from some of the other mains and No-Manes in the series. Speaking of freaky mate face, we have his daughter now, Farleap. Farleap was far from innocent when it came to bullying Nothing, and was the one to deal most of the little petty attacks on the injured lioness's self-esteem. While this doesn't excuse her actions, she explains to Hover that she acted so cruelly towards Nothing because she was jealous of the toxic attention she got from her mother, Power Strike. And that's just sad. Farleap, like her father, also seems to care for other parts of her family, hanging out and seemingly having a good relationship with her sister, and caring for Hover after she joined the Pride. Over the course of episode 7, we see Hover slowly start influencing Farleap's mindset in little ways, convincing her to let Rain drink from their water, and taking initiative in breaking the awkward silence that is sexism of Pride Law. Then Farleap makes the ultimate sacrifice for everything she earned. She gives up all the praise and titles she has to stick up for Hover, getting a nasty slash in the process. Regardless if this is because she's just horny for Hover, or genuinely cares for her. In the process of following Hover out, she also leaves behind her sister, the only other lion she seemed bonded to. So either that's a pretty strong crush, or Farleap is actually starting to change for the better. The reason she's higher up in comparison to her mother is because she actually got physically hurt and was the first in the Pride to flat out refuse Proudmane's demands, which is what I believe led to Power Strike following suit. On to our next morally gray character, we have the maybe equally horny Silent Stalk. While not much of a character to begin with, it's made clear that she's the backup for Farleap and her petty ways of bullying nothing. However, the observation shows that she wasn't as cruel as Farleap. Sure, her being attached to Farleap at the hip didn't help the situation, but there's a possibility that she was just following along with everyone else and mistreating nothing, and seemed to leave her alone outside of backing up her sister. Silent Stalk also complimented and encouraged her half-brother Feather, so it's clear she cares about her family. Silent Stalk, at the end of episode 7, is left with a demanding Proudmane beckoning her to follow him, as she sits there, looking numb. Who's to say she won't follow them, or who's to say she won't stay? One of the most neutral of the dark gray area characters, to be sure. On the note of sisterly love, just on the border of the dark gray area, we have Water Hunter. Without a voice, we don't know much about her personality, save a few sideways glances and smiling at her cubs. However, the only reason she's in the dark gray area rather than the light gray area is because she roared in agreement to Nothing's cruel and unjustified name. Starting off the light gray area, we have Moonstrike. Not much is known about her, just looking at the series, and she seems pretty neutral. What puts her this low in the light gray area is how she dealt with fire. Now, it was wise for her to test fire somehow to see that he didn't cheat in winning over Barkmane's pride. But demanding him kill Feather? If it truly was a test, she should have been prepared for both outcomes, but after all is said and done, she's dejected, like she didn't actually expect him to do it, yet she was the one who told him to literally kill a kid. Make up your mind, woman! Next up, we have the tragic Barkmane. Not much is known about Barkmane either, other than that he was mated to Moonstrike for many seasons, and did his absolute best to protect his pride. But other than that, not much is known about his morality. When it's all about the family, it's all about Feather's sisters. Despite teasing and maybe even bullying Feather a bit for having different opinions from the Pride, they were worried sick when Feather went missing, and the banter they had was similar to that of Nothing and her siblings at the beginning of the series, so pretty harmless. When you, supposedly, have multiple souls in a single vessel, how do you judge its morality? You can't. Ghost was, by far, one of the most complex and mysterious characters in all of my Pride. He was also one of the hardest to rank. They were funny as hell, terrifying, demanding, comforting, and almost adorably shy. Too many character traits that can't really define them. Next up, we have the innocent deliverer of bad news, Precise Charge. She's this high because despite us knowing close to nothing about her, she was the one to calmly explain to Light what had happened to his bride. She couldn't possibly have known that Light would have blown up at her like that. Poor thing looks so confused and scared. Sympathy points. And the last on our light gray scale, we have everyone's favorite dad, Starmane. The one who showed the most loving care of his pride out of any of the other mains of the Sisters Step in the series. The only reason this obviously wholesome and happy dad figure isn't on the good list is because of what he had to do to become a dad in the first place. Yep, he too was a no-main that had to kill another main, Embermane, to claim the pride. That's the only reason he's down here in the gray area. Good. Starting out our good list, we have innocent little Spark. He stood up for his sister, and his adorably innocent sense of play and fairness would have made for a better brother than Fire way down the line. Sadly, he died before we can see him achieve much more than playing Light in Karabi Fight. Next up, we have the reactive protagonist of Nothing. There were some stupid and neglectful choices made by Nothing, but after all she's endured, many would think she would have done worse things than just neglect duties to look after cubs and favor to see her brother. But she's caring and open-minded, always trying to help strangers and minding her P's and Q's, despite literally being on the verge of starvation. Not the smartest character, but definitely lovable. With more lovable characters ahead, we have the mighty Sharp Tongue. staring down Quickmane since Nothing's childhood. Sharp Tongue was the only one to consistently stick up for Nothing and try to offer her comfort when nobody was on her side. She did her best to spread her wisdom to generations younger and newer, despite not holding the same beliefs as the rest of her family. She was well respected and loved by all for good reason. Except for maybe Quickmane. Next, we have the wholesomely selfless soft boy, that is, Tangle. He had charm in the beginning and tasted good in the end. Was still good in the end. Was still caring and loving in the end when fire killed him. He was a good boy through and through. Rest in peace. The history of my pride is not complete without mentioning our next character, Kansu, aka Rain. Kansu is the only one of the three goddesses actively trying to solve the issues happening on Earth instead of either staying in a bubble or slowly killing the planet. Kansu gives tests and results to both Nothing and Hover to gently guide them in a way that they can solve things in this world. There's an inkling that the Storm Goddess has been made weak by the mistreatment of her planet and can't just snap her fingers to make everything better. However, she did summon Rain to save Nothing, and led her and Feather to water. She was the one to show Nothing the truth about her existence, and urged her to find the shifting place, admitting her weakness and need for help to make her world better again. Speaking of thirsty kitties, we have our bronze medalist for good, Hover, next on my list. Hover was the only friend of Nothing's willing to give up her lifestyle for her, declaring her love at the possible cost of her life, and still being empathetic to Farleap when she opened up to her, and even being kind to tree up the ass Power Strike when she was vulnerable as well. Sure, she might have gotten angry at Nothing and shouted at her, kicking her when she was already down from physical and verbal smackdowns from both Power Strike and Quickmane, but goddammit, she had a right to be mad. She gave up her life for Nothing, and the least that lioness could do was show up for her ceremony. After she promised to, mind you. The only thing that stops Hover from steamrolling to the gold medal was said outburst that sadly couldn't be dealt with in a healthier manner at the time. Doing great things for our lovers since Emerald Valley days, we have our silver medalist for good, Karabi. Karabi was the most level-headed of the three chosen, and actually suggested multiple healthy ways for Kyoga to deal with her dilemma of living a life that wasn't hers. So sad that Kyoga didn't really do it in the ways Karabi suggested. Even after Light had killed so many of her kingdom, Karabi was courteous to him when they met to discuss, communicating clearly for him to stay back and away from Kyoga, and when he got too close, Karabi did what she had to protect her love, and paid the ultimate price for doing so. She deserved so much better. And with literally everyone else out of the way, my gold medal for good goes to Feather. No, not my cat Feather, but literally the best character in the series. He's selfless, learned to hunt, collaborated well with Nothing, and communicated clearly and appropriately, loving Nothing unconditionally, regardless of what situations they were in. He was also the only one to consistently stand up against Pride Law after taking a stance, even with Hover having a moment of weakness in this category. So, what My Pride videos should I make next? I've gotten requests to expand further on some of my other AUs, and I have other ideas for videos on what most people now tell me is a dead series, but whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the other side.